We're going to move to the next part of Roman numeral 9, the A1 Construction Manager Report.
What's up, Joel?
I believe
My
the
presentation
page,
will not be as exciting as that.
I believe the page
hard to
that
top.
would be relevant for this section is on page 195. Good evening, and the floor is yours.
Thanks. Good evening, everybody. Everybody have 3 documents that we distributed last week?
We do.
Okay. Before we get into those, I'll kind of start out by going through a few of the major components of our project, first with the building. So in general, the building is tracking nicely. I wrote down a few key notes here that I'll just briefly talk about. Concrete foundation and slab on grade is 100% complete as of today. Masonry work is 95% complete. So the only thing remaining is some miscellaneous face brick as well as some miscellaneous interior non-load-bearing masonry walls. Other than that, it's all complete. Structural steel is 95% complete. MEP rough-in has started. That's underway. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Roof blocking is set to begin this week with the permanent roof system to start next week, which is shingles. Bleachers, visitor side bleachers are scheduled to begin at the end of this month, with home side to begin early next month. So for all intents and purposes, we're on schedule for the building. So we were able to absorb some of the delays caused by Mother Nature on the building much easier than we could absorb on the field. So, anybody have any questions with regards to the building, bleachers?
So,
Any of that
are
work?
we on schedule?
For the building, yes.
No, for the project.
Well,
I think that's what he's hinting towards.
I didn't get to the field
I
yet.
understand that, that's why.
So, and,
Number
you know,
two.
the big difference between the building and the field, after we do get a rain event, if the following day's sunny or we don't have rain, we're on the building working. As far as the field, we get a rain event, we could be off the field for the next day or two, depending on how much moisture we receive during that rain event. That's the difference. So we didn't feel the impact as much on the building as we did on the field.
So right now we're at what we talked about this morning, rain events.
Yeah, I'll get into the
Okay.
field.
Oh, okay.
You know, I'm just tackling each
Okay.
one by itself, but
The good news first, okay.
yeah, there's the roof project at the existing school is good news too. But before I move on from the buildings, anybody have any questions with anything else that we've done to date or what you see out there? It's gone pretty well. So
I've been there
it's starting to
twice.
look like something.
I've been out there twice as a representative of the board and liked what I saw, and
Yep.
like your field man is really, really good.
Yeah, Jeff's good. He does a good job and he communicates. So, all right, next roofing project at the existing facility here. Obviously, weather affects that. But again, in general, I just met with Olson Roofing today, and we're tracking to be complete in accordance with our substantial completion date of around August 7th. So far, so good on that. It's obviously weather permitting moving forward, but I mean, as I'm sitting here right now, we're going to be within a couple of days, give or take, around that August 7th. So I'm going to work with Joel and his staff to coordinate as we get closer. So unless this rain continues, and hopefully it has to stop eventually, but if we get some decent weather, I don't foresee any major schedule impact to the roof project.
All right, let's go to it.
Trap. I'll get to the trap real quick. So we began excavation of the storm trap system today. So today was day one. Reason we waited till now, storm trap delivery is scheduled for the last week of July. So this is a good time to start. Plus the building's wrapping up, so we're getting some of those guys out of the way. Today was day one, and we're going to continue excavating. The little bit of excavation that we started with today, we did not encounter bedrock. I expect we will eventually, because we've done some test holes, as we know. But the one corner we did start and we didn't encounter any at the required depth that we needed for the system and the associated stone base. So far so good on that. But again, I do expect to encounter some bedrock in the near future.
And we'll be able to chisel that out. We've already started as a team. I don't want them to think like we're We're on top of that. We've talked about that, you, me, Jeff,
Right.
Gary. And that's what we have some of our
So
allowance
at
budgets.
the time of bedrock, at the time we encounter that, we will get with Oz Engineering as well as WT and determine what the actual depth of that is and how much of it has to be removed to achieve an acceptable stone base that's designed by Storm Trap. So everybody's on call, ready to go as soon as we encounter it.
Okay.
So the key is to address it, remove it. Depending on the quantity and the actual quantity we have to remove, we'll adjust that storm trap delivery date accordingly. It's not all gonna come in one day, it's gonna be over a course of a week or so. So if we have to bump it a couple of days because we're still remediating and removing bedrock, then we'll do it, so. So that's kind of to be determined right now. And then the field. As you know, we've proceeded with major remediation work of the existing stone base. So that began, you don't have this document in front of you, this is a document that I'm just gonna reference. We began the remediation work on May 28th, so this remediation work was to take about 4 weeks from start to finish, which is 4 weeks of unforeseen work that was not part of the original scope of work. That 4 weeks is now turned into, we're estimating 8 weeks. So we've had 12 rain events since we began the remediation work. So starting on June 12th was the first one. Those 12 rain events have translated into 20 lost days. So like I had mentioned earlier, we get a rain event, depending on how significant it is, we'll lose a couple of days afterwards until it dries up, because we just do not want to put equipment onto that subgrade and rut it up. And if we get more rain after we rut it up, now we're going to create unsuitable soil, which will then have to be remediated, so we don't want to compound the situation. So yeah, those 12 rain events translated to 20 days, which is 8 weeks. So that's 2 months of additional work above and beyond the original scope of work across the board. So right now we're tracking it being complete July 28th with remediation work, which will get us back to our original baseline.
So you're preparing us for bad news, but we're not at bad news yet.
No, so I'm not gonna sit here and say we can't make end of September for the synthetic turf system. I just don't wanna tell you we are gonna make it. I don't know what the weather's gonna bring. If we get a decent stretch of nice weather here for the next month or so, I think we have a good shot at still making it. We've established kind of a drop dead date so we can prepare for what's gonna happen towards the end of September, early October, towards the end of August. So I will attend the next board meeting. I'll know much more by then. Remediation work will be complete by then, and we'll be much further along. So it's just hard to predict with the weather on these field projects. They do have a significant impact.
And the remediation work isn't that there's improper materials down there. It's like the materials were in a improper order.
The majority of the remediation work is replacing the entire base from the previous project. So if this all makes sense, what I'm about to say, we've had some unforeseen work while addressing the unforeseen condition.
Yes.
Okay, so we've had to perform an undercut. So after we removed the existing stone base that was deemed not acceptable, we did a proof roll of the subgrade before we established the new base, and we did run into a little bit of undercut on a portion of the field. So we did 2 proof rolls. We did the first initial proof roll we did, 60% of the field failed. And we were fortunate enough over the 4th of July weekend to have extreme warm temperatures and dry weather, which really dried out that field. We worked the field a little bit, came back to the second proof roll, and only 20%, maybe a little less than 20% failed. So we've remediated and performed an undercut in that area. It's about $4,000 to $5,000, so relatively minor in the big scheme of things.
What do you mean by undercut, Joe, so people understand? You
What was
said
that?
you've undercut several times. What does that mean?
During a proof roll, we have a fully loaded truck on the field, and the soil engineer determines whether or not the existing soil is stable enough and meets design criteria before we proceed to build that stone base. So there's a section of the field that either pumped some water, or it was soft, or it was rutting up, that he deemed an undercut be performed, which is to remove that unsuitable soil and then replace it with fabric and stone.
And that was
And
this,
then we go with our new design stone base.
and that was this week and the last week. That was recent.
We just finished on
Yes,
Friday.
we just finished it, which is a good thing we did it last Friday because, again, I mean, every day counts on these projects. If we didn't do it last Friday, which was kind of, we didn't have to do it, but we did it. We had another rain event, which we probably would be doing it right now or tomorrow. So it worked out well. So now we're to a point, tomorrow, the field dried up pretty well today. I don't know if anybody went out there, but today it dried up pretty well.
Twice.
So by the end of this week, we'll be starting fabric and panel drain and some stone work. We're gonna start building that new stone base up by the end of the week.
So basically, so the board understands is before we can put the panel drains in it, we gotta make sure the clay is solid. So every time it rains, it's 36 to 48 hours of letting it dry before they can start driving the roller and the dump trucks on it to start dumping stone. So we got that heavy rain Monday morning. We're hopeful they get on it by Wednesday. Even though the sun was out by 9 o'clock on Monday, we lost that whole day Monday and all day today.
So our goal now is gonna get the subgrade covered with stone as quick as we can.
And then you're putting the drains in after that, Joe?
So first step, we'll, once we get back on the field, we'll clean up the subgrade a little bit since the rain we had. We'll put the fabric down, panel drains, and then we'll cover it with the stone as we work back because we don't want to drive over plastic panel drains.
How deep will the drains be then, under the?
I don't know what the new stone
Something
base
like a foot or
section is.
something?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
I don't remember off the top of my head what the total section depth is. But we'll just kind of work our way down the field.
Okay.
So we lay out all the panel drains, make sure they're in the right location, right quantity, and then we go to it.
So when you do the remediation with the gravel where the soil was bad, I mean, do they test that again or tamp it down and make sure
Yep.
that?
Oz Engineering's there,
Oz-
proof roll.
Oz was the third-party consultant we approved, I think, in May. Gary asked about some of their credentials. But basically what that does is then it gives us a third party to hold Nicholas accountable and all the contractors accountable. They test all the cement, they test all the soil, they test all the stone.
Everybody's accountable for some portion of your project.
So,
So
that-
Oz is hired by the school district to ultimately provide the final recommendation, and they're taking on that responsibility.
So that floor out there looks wonderful, the stadium concrete floor, nice and smooth, so they tested the
Yep.
loads and
Yep. They take
should
some-
last us whatever.
Yeah, they take cylinders, obviously you're not copied on all the distributions, but they do cylinder breaks, they'll take samples in the field, and then they'll break them at 7 days, 14 days, 21 or 28 days, just to prove up that it meets the design mix, so far so good, the results have come back good, so we've been meeting design strength.
So regards to your undercutting the soil, and having to put new soil in there,
Stone.
stone, is that again another indication of the prior project not being done correctly? Because I would be surprised, that would tell me that they put stone on top of a surface that was not gonna be able to, so
I'll take the easy way out, I'm not a soil expert.
There was some
You're a diplomat,
I did
though.
find some invoices from the previous project, and there were some undercuttings they had to do in the previous project as well. So,
Just that, like I said, the timing was perfect with that weekend over the 4th, the way that field dried out. Literally 60% of it failed. So, I mean, if we continued with the rain, it would get to a point where do we just wait and wait and wait until this field has an opportunity to dry out and we could work it and do a second proof roll? Or do we just go in there and lime the entire field? I mean, it's a different conversation we would be having versus the way it worked out, so. That's a good thing.
so at August 11th, we'll have a better idea where we are with the field. So the board understands. We have worked with our new interim AD, as John Trivers expressed when he introduced himself that he's hit the ground running. But we were proposing to open the field on October 2nd, which is also homecoming, and that would also be the field dedication. So Joel and I have established a date near the end of August that if we do not think we can hit that, we'll at least have 4 weeks to accommodate if we have to play our game off-site and to accommodate our visiting guest donated the money that we're naming the field after, the complex after. We basically were planning to try to get in 2 football games, October 2nd and I think October, the last week, 23rd. And possibly some end of the year fall boys soccer. So our ADs have put in, our interim AD has put in a contingency plan, so in the event we get bad news near the end of August. But Joe has given me his word that he's going to do everything he can to make sure we don't get that bad news.
From the standpoint of the tennis courts, those are not being contemplated?
We've set everything to be played off-site till we resolve the ongoing issue with the village.
So not only will the girls' tennis be delayed, the potential is the fall, or
Spring.
the
Spring
spring
boys.
tennis boys is probably going to be
Played off-site,
played off-site
correct,
in a different community.
correct.
Are we gonna tear those tennis courts out before we're done this summer, though, or are you gonna leave them there?
We're kind of in a holding pattern right now for that whole Phase 3 work
Okay.
over there, so.
We couldn't tear them out until we got the life safety things approved by the state, so.
Now
And
we're
they're using it to stage
now we're using
I
it
materials
get
and
asked every day from the
staging and-
contractors, can we start?
Is it gravel now
Is
on
there
the?
more you're discussing?
So, Mike,
For what it's worth, not to interrupt, with the site contractor specifically, Reamer Engineering, I had some discussions with him, and, you know, obviously, our goal is to have this field occupiable towards the end of September in preparation of that first game, so every Saturday, if the weather's right, he's working, so it won't even be a discussion, so it'll help. I mean, we don't have a whole lot of Saturdays from now until then, but every day helps.
So where's the vault being put? Where's that vault being dug?
Behind the north
Kind
end
of
of the
off the
bleachers.
northwest corner of the new building, kind of in the back there.
The old field? That area there?
Yeah,
Green space.
south of the tennis court.
Was that moved, or was that the original contemplated place?
It was slightly moved in order, that recommendation is sitting with the village right now, just to, we slightly moved it and twisted it, so in the event the lawsuit or the litigation does not end up successful, and we need to leave the tennis courts in place, the amount of stormwater detention does not change and impact the rest of the project.
Any other questions?
my one question is now that the life safety has been approved, can we tear up the tennis courts?
The life safety approval by the state is different than the life safety money. So yes, they could if they want, if the project manager wants to tear them up, he's eligible to tear them up for several weeks now, right?
He's now eligible to demo them, but we don't know where that's gonna go
Right.
based on the litigation.
Okay.
So we don't know if it's more cost efficient to just have the contractor wait and come and demo them and start doing the other site work than to just demo them and then leave for however long it takes to solve the litigation.
Kevin, we don't need to review any of these pending,
If he wants to go through them.
No,
They're just an FYI for you, or
because they're a small amount, so.
they're all
you said
small
you were
amounts.
gonna
Yeah,
approve. Okay.
nothing's exceeded the 25. I
Okay.
told you I felt uncomfortable around the 25.
All right.
Anything else for,
The gravel, is that the stuff that's on the tennis courts now, I believe, is that going to be reused?
Mhm.
Okay.
Not in the field. That came from the field.
Okay, well, yeah,
So
that's,
that was, that's the aggregate that was within the existing base that we've removed. So our engineer of record, civil engineer of record, deemed that acceptable for areas outside of our new field that requires suitable aggregate fill. So in an effort to keep the remediation costs down, we assumed reusing that in other areas outside the field, which we plan to do.
okay.
Tag team.
okay.
That's all I have.
Thanks, Joe.
All right,
Yep.
thank you
Joe,
very
thank
much.
you very much.
Thanks.
And-
8:30, I was a little off.
It's okay. Have a nice night.
Yes.
Thanks, Joe.